most kids look almost exactly the same, except for a little difference between the legs, and they
That's
will only
right.
know what it means really to become a man or a woman when those sexual hormones kick in.
Hey everyone, I caught myself a beautiful human being. But of course, before we move forward, I want to thank you so much for liking, subscribing, getting these interviews out to people. They're really these interviews are changing. I just see people really loving them, and I think people are connecting to them, and we're giving a voice to people who are on some level voiceless. And I think that's one of the things I love about doing these podcasts is it's not just the same old people talking, or we're getting all these people from all over the world, and so it really, I can't do it without all of you helping this channel grow. And so I just always want to tell you from my heart that it means so much to me that we're all creating this amazing, powerful community with these beautiful people. So with that, I have, I'm going to say Gael. I called her Gail, like all American. Anyway, she's from France, and she reached out to me a while ago. And so we're going to have an amazing, beautiful conversation. So hi, Gael. Please introduce yourself and we'll move forward.
Hello, so nice to meet you. I'm very glad to actually talk to you because I follow you. I have a few accounts, so I've been following you with a few different accounts, but I'm always liking your videos, and
Thank you.
yeah, I really like the work you do.
Thank you.
So yeah, my name is Gaëlle, and I'm French. I teach French to foreigners actually, so I talk a lot to foreigners.
Great.
I've been living abroad as well, and one of the reasons that I've been following the trans issue is because I became a parent. So it wasn't so interesting to me before. I was doing some other things. I worked in dancing and I was living abroad, as I said. But when I heard some things about the like trans issue, I was like, oh yeah, of course, everybody should be, accepted as for who they are and so on.
Yeah.
And then I think it might have been a year and a half ago, so it's actually very recent. But then when I really go into something, I go really intense, and so suddenly I started watching all these videos to know what was going on because I was called a TERF, and I didn't know what that meant. it was in the it was in the chess scene, as I told you
Oh,
before. So I'm a chess player. For those who,
great.
of course, will not know, so in the chess scene, at least in France, it's pretty conservative. France is pretty conservative. I
Yeah.
found that over the years.
Yeah.
And so in the chess community, there's a division between people who think that we should only keep the general chess competitions, which include women. So men and women can play against each other. It's not that physical. I mean, beside maybe actually athletes need to work their heart, but it's not like there would be a big difference between men and women. And so still some women like to go to women only events,
Yeah.
and so we don't have men only events. We only have men and women events, and then women only events. And
Okay.
so at some point, I'm a little bit of a feminist. I don't consider that to be a bad thing.
No.
For me, a feminist is supposed to be about just being able to do whatever men can do as well. I want to be able to do that, and that's it. Um, but when it comes to chess, a lot of people were saying that it's bad for women to go to women only events because they don't let people appreciate that they could be, playing against men and having the same kind of results, which, when you hear that, you're like, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. It's kind of a shame. Okay. But then the more I learned about this, and the more I realized that it would be unfair to not have this kind of events for various reasons. And I don't know
Yeah.
if I should go into detail about
Yeah.
the reasons
Yeah.
why, but so
Yeah.
very quickly, like my position on this is that there's not only the physical parts, there's the whole psychological and upbringing part. Because I was brought up a girl, and
Mm-hmm.
when I grew up, for example, my stepmother and I, so my parents were divorced, and my stepmother um, basically used to tell me things you would never ever say to a little boy growing up, like, oh,
Yeah.
you need to smile more, people are wondering what's going on with her, she's not smiling enough, you don't
Yep.
say that to boys. And
No.
so well, I had some issues like everybody, nothing too big, but so I didn't want to smile, and the more people told me to smile, the more like, oh, I don't want to smile to you.
That's right. No,
And
that's
so
right.
I also was I was a actually something I didn't mention to you, but
Yeah.
like some of the people you received, if I had been born now, I'm so worried I would have wanted to become a
A
trans
boy.
man, I guess.
A
Yes,
boy. Yeah.
yes,
100%.
because
Yeah.
actually, I'm kind of going into two different directions. So let me
It's
finish
okay.
first what I was saying. Um, so I was told to smile more, and because I was a bit of a tomboy and I didn't want to wear dresses or wear makeup
Hmm. Hmm.
until I was 13, I
Hmm.
was using what we call in France joggings, but I think it's not the same word in English.
Okay.
It's an English word. It's basically the kind of sports clothes.
Yeah.
Because I felt comfortable in them,
Of
I
course.
absolutely did not want to wear anything too tight or too
Hmm.
showy. I didn't want to show my body.
Hmm.
Um, and
Right.
so there was this kind of things happening, and also so now the other thing is that I thought in my head I was a boy, and then of course I realized that I was in a girl's body. But whatever, whenever I would go to sleep, I had my little fantasies. I think like a lot of people have, like not normal fantasies, like the kid level and then teenage
Hmm.
level fantasies and so on. But I would always picture myself being a boy or a man, like doing things, going into the world. And at some
Of
point, I
course.
realized I realized I was doing that, and I was like, oh, I think there might be something wrong with me, but whatever. I just won't tell anybody. And so I kept, living my life. And
Yeah.
I realized that a lot, I realize now with time that a lot of the stories I used to read, it was all about, it's these old style stories like fairy tales, those
Yeah.
girls being told not to be curious, to be wise, good little girls. And then the guys would go and have their life, and the girls were just watching. And someday this special girl is too curious and she opens the door, like the
Yeah.
stories like from Mother Goose,
Of course.
like Bluebeard and stuff like that. It was this
Yes.
kind of stories. So you're not supposed to be curious, and if you are, you're gonna pay for it, and
Wow.
sometimes with your life. And so sometimes, of course, not. The story would be different, but so I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine myself going to sleep and then picturing
Yeah.
myself being a girl and not being able to do anything. So very naturally, I thought, oh, I must be a boy because I want to do stuff, and girls don't want to do stuff.
Right.
And it all goes, when you talk about stereotypes in your videos, I found that very interesting because,
Hmm.
in a way, it seems to me that the trans issue, it's not at all about letting people be who they are. It's actually very dangerous, and it's about stereotypes. And because we think, oh,
Totally.
girls are not supposed to be like that, if I
Right.
want to be free and independent, then I
Yep.
must be a boy. And that's
That's
why we
right.
see so many girls wanting to be boys. I wanted to be one.
That's not trans. That
Yeah.
is literally normal. But I mean, you explained it perfectly, friend. You explained it perfectly, and I bet tons of people are going to relate. You know how many women write to me and say the same thing? When I was a
Mm,
kid, I was exactly what you just said, and today I'm a lady who has kids, and I'm this person, and I love being a woman, and so it's so important that's why I told you before when I started this, it's important we get voices like yours. You're just a woman living in the world who had this experience and is saying, I lived as a tomboy as a kid, or whatever you want to call it, right? And you explained it so well. They teach girls to take the back seat, right? And what girl wants to take the back seat? They want to go and do what all the boys are going. So now all of a sudden today that makes you a boy? That's absurd. So I appreciate you being so well spoken and really your life experience because it's going to show what we're all trying to say. These are stereotypes. These are not trans kids. These are kids who are dealing with stereotypes and being told that they're, like it's black and white. It's not black and white. Nothing
mm.
is. Right.
I'm sure until I was 13, if someone had told me, oh, you could be trans, maybe you just need to do this, I would have been like, yeah, let's go. I'm going to feel so much better being a
That's
boy
right.
because I'm not
That's
going to
right.
think about the details. And I have this kind of personality. And in my life, I've always been like this, that if there's
Yes.
a challenge and you have some obstacles, it's not a problem. We'll deal with
That's
it when
right.
the time comes. So I wouldn't think of the bodily issues I might actually have, which would be super serious. And
That's
and I
right.
want to add one last thing because you
Yeah.
said so many girls told, like so many women told you this, and they became
Yep.
ladies or had children.
Yeah.
Um, I have a very strong personality that very often, still nowadays, I'm like, probably things would have been way easier if I had been a man. I still think this. This has
Sure.
not left me, but it's
Sure.
not because I feel like that I should I want to say destroy my body, because I'm
It
so glad to
is.
have a body that functions. And
Yes.
I've been doing a lot of sports and acrobatics and stuff like that. And I would
Excellent.
never want to lose the function, like a functioning
Yes.
body. It's so important.
Yes. Can I ask
Mm.
you this? No, that's a great point. And don't feel in any way that you ever need to sort of um, uh, edit your language here. I'm open to everything, and it doesn't affect me. Like I made my choices at 30 years old, right? I did not make
And
my choice at
I
10.
talk to you like you're a man, because I really don't see you as
Thank you.
trans. You pass, as they say, you pass
Thank you.
so well. It's
It's the
unbelievable.
point. It's the
Yes.
literal point so that people see me
Yeah.
as a man. But you and I both know I'm not a man. But that's why I get along with everyone because you respect me and I respect you. I'm not coming to the table lying to you. I'm really a man. Watch out. No, I'm not. I never was. I never will be. I look like a dude. Anyway, you know the whole story, but I appreciate that and it means a lot to me. And I think by us having these conversations, we can show the world that the trans agenda is a lie. And it is a lie. And I will not side with that because I care about these kids. And you can't make this choice. You can't cut off your boobs at 15 and be like, because imagine if you did that, Gail. Imagine if you did that. Today, how would you feel? You might be even in a worse situation.
I definitely would not have been with my husband. I think, because he
And
might love the
children.
person that I am, but
And you have
yes,
children, right? You're a
yes.
mother.
Oh
Yeah,
God, and I love them so much. I can't imagine like missing out on that. And
that's
I was
right.
someone who didn't want kids, and just to
See?
show you how much I think I would have been one of those trans kids, is that
Oh
when
my
I was
God.
20,
Oh my God.
I was ready to go through the equivalent of a female vasectomy,
Okay,
and
yeah.
actually went to see a
Yeah.
doctor to go through
Yeah.
that. I really did not want kids.
Hmm.
And it's true, when you look into biology, the brain only matures completely around 25. I was 20, and
That's right.
I was so different when I was 20 from when I was 25, and I was
That's
ready to
right.
do some crazy stuff to me at 20.
That's right.
And then luckily someone made me see how I might regret this, because I hate not having the choice. And actually doing this to myself and removing that choice was like going against my
Yes.
what I like to have the choice, even if I did
That's
not
right.
want kids, really. And I changed my mind a few years later, meeting the right person.
That's right. And that is such a profound thing to say that one person is going to hear this, my friend, and they're going to go, "Oh, why are we in such a hurry to do this to
Yeah,
children? What's
yeah,
the hurry? I did it at 30 and it was the best thing I ever did. I never looked back. I'm solid. Everything is
that's
awesome."
perfect.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's the way it should be. No child, even at 20, you make such a great point. No 20-year-old woman can say, I didn't want to have kids, right? And my partner has a kid and I adopted it and we're together. And I'm the happiest person in the world because I now have a kid in my life. And I
that's
never
perfect.
wanted to have a kid. That is something that can change. And how dare we take that away from young people? How
Yes.
dare we say a 15-year-old can take their boobs off, have a hysterectomy, and will never, ever be able to have children again? I want to propose this question to you. You won't have the answer, I'm sure, but I just want you to think about this for a minute. What about all the kids today who are trans kids, even at 20, who are removing their breasts and having hysterectomies? What happens when they become 25 like you or 30, right? And to say, "Uh-oh, I really do want to have kids." Now, who takes responsibility for letting these children make adult choices? It's a kind of a, hypothetical question to you, but who do we hold responsible for this?
Well, as you probably and I can see online, people are just putting the responsibility on these kids and saying, well, they made their choice, but
That's
it's
right.
so wrong. It's so wrong. And you are talking about this word, they are in a hurry to do this to kids. And I
Yes.
want to say, kids, I was like this. I was in a hurry to live
Yes.
my life and do everything I could. Like I felt like I was a little bit prevented from doing what I wanted to do when I was a kid.
Sure.
So as soon as I could, when I was 18, I left the house. I went traveling. I did stuff I wanted, and I was in a
Yep.
hurry. So
Yep.
this feeling of being in a hurry, I'm sure it's also more typical of youth than
Of
later on.
course. Yes.
And that's also why it's a reason to really slow things down, because they are in a hurry and they'll do anything super
That's
fast and
right.
then regret it. Yeah.
They'll regret it. And it's not like hair color or shaving your head or wearing weird clothes or
Or
painting your
even just
fingernails
a piercing.
or even a piercing. Even cuz I even had my nose pierced 20 years ago, right? I had my everything pierced, and it all came out, and it doesn't matter. You don't even know it happened, right?
Yes.
Those kind of things can be reversed, and that's why you can let a kid kind of feel it out that way. But to actually do things that are and then saying it's reversible. The lies, right? It is not reversible to take your breasts off. What world do we live in? What? It's
Yeah,
shocking.
this thing about especially puberty blockers being reversible, I was
Oh my
really
God.
trying to find. I mean, I'm not a specialist or anything, but
No, of course.
I read as many things from as many sources as possible that I
Yeah.
could find, because I
Yes.
was wondering. So many people are telling me, like, each person is saying the contrary, it's reversible, it's not. I was like, well, why some people are saying it is and some people are saying it's not? And I was
Right.
trying to find the information, and I read about, sexual hormones. Do you call them like this? Sexual
Yes.
hormones,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
testosterone, and
Yes.
for the woman, estrogen,
Estrogen. Yes.
estrogen, and puberty blockers might seem to be reversible because, oh, you are just putting those hormones on a break. But what happens when you're putting them on a break? You have to start thinking, what were they supposed to do during that time while they are on a break? And when you
Excellent.
see what they're supposed to do, that's when you realize, oh, maybe it's not so reversible, because by the time you grew up, those hormones are not coming back, at least not naturally. And
Nope.
even if you do induce, them coming back
Yep.
artificially, still you're not suddenly going to grow back the 10 or 20 centimeters you were supposed to have, or
That's
whatever.
right.
And so many things I found that I think those hormones are responsible, among other things, um, for this phenomenon called, I'm not sure how to pronounce it,
It's okay.
myelinization of axons. Have you heard about
Oh no.
this?
What's that? Tell us.
I'm not very good at explaining
It's
this, but
okay.
it's something on the neurons, and it seems to be like on one part, it's a very specific part on the neurons.
Okay.
And this phenomenon takes place apparently only between the age of 15 and 18. So if you want puberty blockers way before, good luck with that. And what is that supposed to be doing? It's supposed to be helping with abstract ideas. So basically, if you're on puberty blockers, exactly, if you're on puberty blockers before that, and you pass through this stage and you don't grow up properly and are on puberty blockers, you are not getting this process done in your brain, and so you might end up with what, a teenage like brain which is missing this part. Like, so I'm not sure if it
Yes.
would come back later if you were on
No way.
that's
No
so
way. No
I saw
way.
quite a few things. So it's crazy. When I saw that, I was like, this is so crazy. Like, you are
What?
asking a child who doesn't have, you see, those abstract ideas to imagine the consequences of, on your body, blah, blah, blah. You're asking a teenage brain to make a decision.
That's
They
right.
might never get the possibility of having a properly, fully developed brain
That's right.
with these things. And then you're like, oh, by the way, that was your fault. If you regret it later.
I know. I know. It's shocking. I mean, it's just, are we living in this world? That being said, you're so right. Thank you for doing the research on that. I did tons of research on puberty blockers. I even had people on my show who were put on puberty blockers to make points, and they still say, I'm lying. Buck is transphobic. I'm like, lying? I didn't come out of my mouth. It came out of somebody who was literally put on puberty blockers. But that says to me there's some weird agenda. And you make a really great point, because this whole neuron blocking neurons, are they trying to create a new breed of young people that are sort of immature, and the fact that they won't be able to make their own choices? So when you have an immature person, you can easily sway them, right? You can easily manipulate them into thinking a way you want them to think. I mean, I sound crazy right now. It sounds very conspiracy, but there's something. Why would you do this to a human being?
Well,
There's no, yeah.
I think those people are probably not even aware of this detail, because it seems most people are not aware of this specific detail. So I think it's more ignorance than anything else. I
But
might
why
be
would they?
wrong.
No, you're giving
But
them that. I'm not going to give them that, because you know what? This is a medical world. I'm not going to give them that. How shame on them. It's the medical world. When you're in the medical world, so you're just going to
yeah, I
start.
was talking more about the
Oh, the
activists.
regular people
Yeah.
out there, but the medical world is pushing this. The Association of Pediatrics pushes use it. WPATH, the organization that's for trans rights, people are pushing. So what they did is they got people to think trans kids are kids. So stupid people just go along with this idea without being you and going, wait a minute here, I want to do a little research. And you being the person who says, wait a minute, is less. We don't have enough people doing what we call here due diligence, right? We don't have people going and doing a little bit. It's not isn't that hard to go do a little research. And once you do the research, your brain goes, "What? Why would we ever do that to a child?" and block not only the growth of their brain, but here's an interesting statistic with puberty blockers. It also stunts the growth of the genitals. So when you stunt the growth of the genitals, if you want this boy who wants to be a girl to have a vagina, she can't have the vagina or he can't.
Not enough tissue.
That's right. So how
Yes.
is that a positive
Not
thing
helping.
in any way, shape, or form? I believe it's an experiment from creepy, weird medical.
Yeah.
Also, money. It has to be. There's no legitimate explanation for this in any way, shape, and you watch, you know it, mark my words, all of these children are going to be destroyed. And then we're all, me and you and the rest of us here are going to be like, we were trying to scream at you, but no, everyone's looking at us like we're the nutty ones. But we're like, nope, this is not, this is actually insane. It's child abuse.
Yeah, and you know what you said, that it's not even helping them in the end and it's keeping them in an almost more childlike
Yes.
body than it's supposed to be.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to make the link now to this book that came
Great.
out in France, which is called Transmania. So it could sound very offensive, I can imagine, of course, but trans what? You know, you
Yeah.
guys make the difference now between transsexual and transgender, for
That's
example.
right.
So it's more about transgender mania, really.
Okay.
Um, I read almost the whole book. I think I didn't manage to finish it because, you know, life with kids is a bit complicated and I love reading different books.
Great.
Um, but I almost read this book, which was huge. It came out in May.
Okay.
Almost no one in France was really hearing regularly about these things, or maybe just a bit here and there, like me before, you know, oh yeah, okay, wow. But then this book came out, and it was written by two feminists that were kind of famous in
Okay.
France. They were like making a living out of working as feminists and doing stuff. And then they started being called TERF because on their, like one of them, for example, on her Instagram account, she was talking about sexual health for women, and then she was being called a TERF because she didn't want to include women with penises health.
Excellent.
And she was like, well, I don't know about penises. I'm talking about women. Oh,
Yeah.
what did she say? You know that. So she actually, you know, we are laughing about it now, but from what she said later on, that was like 4 or 5 years ago, she started getting really threatened and having big problems because of this. So quite a lot of, I would call them trans activists, maybe
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
started going after her, threatening her, and this kind of thing.
Wow.
So at the beginning, she was
Wow.
finding that fun, like, what? A penis on a
Yeah.
woman? What are you talking about? And she's like, oh, okay, let's look. Like, those guys are serious, you know, like,
Yeah.
let's look into this. And so those two women wrote this book. Um, I read it. It's not written, I will say, it's not written in the most diplomatic way. So I
Okay.
can completely imagine that people, especially from the left wing, because, you know,
Sure.
it's very political as well. So a lot of people might find that offensive. And I was also reading some things and think, oh, look, you know, you might have said it in a different way, but okay. So, okay, it was very brutal.
Oh
But
wow.
she was actually saying almost everything like they say in the book, I had seen it already, either through your channels, you and
Okay.
Marcus, for example, maybe Blair White, on some other people. So, or
Okay.
it's just, it was new for us in France. And so
Right.
people didn't believe them. They were like, you guys are crazy. You're inventing stories. And some of the stories I didn't know. So I went like looking them up on Google. It was there, you know, it was in the media, in the English speaking media.
Sure.
French people are not the greatest at languages, you know, this reputation sticks to them. It's still a little bit true. And so they had not heard about these things. They thought they were really transphobic and crazy and inventing stories.
Wow.
And so some of the things they mentioned in the book, and actually I think for them it was probably one of the most important parts of the book, it was about uh, I think we're supposed to say pedocriminals now, at least in French. We can't say it anymore.
That's right. You can't. I'll
Yeah.
believe it. But yeah, yeah. Oh, so there
Okay.
was a part about in there.
A big part of the book was about this. And so people who were against them or didn't know about what might have happened were saying, you guys are completely like out of your mind. But there were,
Wow.
I mean, of course, it's not going to be the biggest part about the trans issue. But when I looked into it, the people that went to the prisons that were transgender and so on, actually, most of them had been doing some serious child abuse
That's right.
or female abuse on
That's
females.
right.
And so some of it was new to me.
Hmm.
And so you were talking about, the genitals not having enough tissue to make like real genitals. They were telling in this book that there was actually a website for pedophiles and that they had. I couldn't find that, but they said that they looked into it and they are journalists as well, So they found this website where pedophiles were actually having some kind of um, how do you call that? Not a mantra, but something like
Oh, right. Yeah, like I get you. Yeah, like a
credo or something like
yeah,
this.
right. Credo. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Um, and they were actually talking about trans kids in this and saying
See.
it was super important for pedophiles to support the trans issue because for them, of course, people might say, but I'm not talking about the reason why most, I
No,
think,
you're
trans
not.
activists want to do that.
You're
But
not.
there is a loophole. It's about having
That's
the
right.
loophole because we're allowing people to maybe change their sex way too early. It's actually
Yes. That's right.
benefiting those people, and they were saying we have
Right.
to be all over this trans issue and make it happen because if it happens, then it's going to be an easier way into kids' sexuality. Also, it's going to be easier for us to say, "Oh, I'm trans age. That's why I'm attracted to young kids." I looked; it dates back, but there was actually. Something, I don't know if it was in the 90s or 80s, it's a little bit old, but there was
Okay.
something where someone used it at court in the USA. I don't know if
What?
some other people tried to use it. Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
crazy. I can send you the links later.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so they talked about this. And so, of course, people who had never heard anything about the trans stuff except, oh, let's accept people might say, what? Oh, this is crazy. But this is
Yeah.
real. Like,
Wow.
so,
That's why they came after them. That's exactly why they came after them because they actually spoke about that subject, which is considered to be transphobic to say. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's happening. I've been in
yeah.
this community for 32 plus years. This was never a thing. And in fact, when I was in the gay community, we had things called NAMBLA, which is the National Association of Man Boy Love, which is a pedo organization. And we were like, get away from us. We never wanted this. So I see a
Wow.
correlation of trans kids and these kind of groups, right? They're trying to hide it. You have to really search for these groups. I totally understand that. They hide and then they started calling themselves maps, right? Minor attracted people. So instead of,
Yeah.
that's right, they started changing the language and trying to sort of normalize, right? I totally believe this is happening. But and that goes back to my original question. Why would they do this? Right? Keeping kids immature, young. I don't think it's the whole reason. Like you and I both agree with. There's some other stuff going on there, but it's sick. It's we have been infiltrated by these crazy weirdo people who are using my own disorder to normalize. I'm going to say it, kids up, and it's pissing me off. I will not be associated with this. So that's why people got mad at the book because the book was
Mm,
exposing
yes.
something dark. This is
Yes.
dark. Wow. Just wow. So what happened with the book now? Is it been banned?
Oh, yes, it was actually so. One of the reasons it got big like attention from everyone is
Yeah.
because the mayor of Paris, all the posters,
Okay. Yeah.
for publicity
Yeah.
that were like on bus stations or something, bus stops. The mayor of Paris saw that and. Maybe he was contacted first by some trans activists and then he decided to remove that saying it was transphobic. But what was transphobic? If there was this thing about, okay, if the cover of the book is transphobic, you should just forbid the book to
That's
be
right.
sold, but they couldn't forbid the book to be sold. So they only said having the publicity for that book was transphobic, but the book was still like buyable. But a lot of librarians either hid the book. Apparently, some people went to look for the book and it was hidden, and it was very
Wow.
difficult. Lots of people just did not want to sell it anymore in their libraries, and the
Wow.
only place that a lot of people like me could buy it was online on
Wow.
Amazon and the equivalent of the
Sure.
French equivalent of the Amazon.
Of Amazon. But at least you could get it on Amazon, which is a big deal because they try to ban books on Amazon as well.
Mm,
But everyone pay attention here. When you start banning books and you start calling them, right? I don't have a problem with that book and I'm trans, right? I have no problem because in that book, if there's lies and deceit, it'll come out. It'll come out that the book is just very transphobic. But if it's not, I don't have anything to worry about, right? So why are the trans activists wanting to block books like this? Why don't you let people read the book for themselves and then maybe they'll be smart enough? So what you're saying is people aren't smart enough to distinguish between lies and not lies. That's what you're saying when you ban a book, right? And there's many books out there that I'm particularly like and I think should be not available, but it's not. I'm not going to say ban the book. I'm not going to read the book. I'm not going to promote the book. But banning books is a slippery slope. And so
yeah.
what if we on the side that don't agree with the trans activists want to start banning trans activist books, right? It works both ways, people. You can't just ban because it looks guilty to me. When you start saying we have to ban that book because it's transphobic, that looks guilty to me, and that makes me want to read the book even more. If
Yes.
that, right?
That's why I went to read it because I was curious and I thought, okay, if it's really full of,
Yeah,
excuse my,
that's
pardon my
right.
French,
That's right.
um,
That's right.
uh, then yeah, I'll see by myself. But something I wanted to add about this was,
What a shame.
damn, I forgot.
That's
You
okay.
can
You'll
cut that
remember.
part.
You'll remember because
um,
it's such a, I mean, really, what a great conversation. Thank you again for joining me today because we need to know in France. That's one thing I love about the community we're building here. We're getting people from all over the world. This isn't just a US space. I mean, I get
yes.
so many interviews from,
And the US is so, influencing the whole world. It
I
has been for a
know,
long time.
I
Everything that
know.
happens in the USA, now that, I've been in the English speaking world for a while, I can see
Sure.
that a few years later it comes to France, but it takes a few years.
It's
Uh, oh,
disgusting.
it was about, I wrote to it was not the mayor of Paris, it was the adjoint au
Okay.
maire, which is someone working for him, and
Okay.
actually contacted him on Instagram and saying, well, I saw what you said. He talked really badly about the book, and
Mhm.
I'm reading the book, and actually I'm finding out that it's just, what's been going on in English, in the English speaking world.
Yeah.
And he actually answered to me, but he did not have anything to say. He treated me like I was probably a transphobic person. He didn't say that, but he basically said, "Oh no, we are accepting of anyone, and we don't discriminate on the basis of blah blah blah." And he didn't answer. I said, "But did you read the book? I think you did not read it, and you are speaking about the book like you have." And going back to the
Right.
political
Right.
topic as well, I
Yeah.
realize that it's very political, and actually, it's probably the biggest reason why I'm not feeling so left inclined anymore.
That's right.
Bearing in mind that the left and the right are very different in France, it's
Yes.
not as extreme, but it is
Yes.
becoming more and more extreme.
It is.
I used to think there was no extreme left, and for the first time in my life, I'm like, oh, it
That's right.
exists, and that's what it is. And
I
so
know.
I used to think I was so, from the left wing, and I'm like,
Yep.
oh, I'm taking my distances. This is
That's right.
super weird. I'm still definitely not someone from the right, even though the right is more socialist in France anyway.
Yes.
But I don't, I'm in like no one's land. I don't know
We
where
all
I am,
are. We
and
all are.
a lot of people are feeling that. I
That's
think,
right. I am
and
too. I'm with you.
mm,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
scary. I watched all of our rhetoric come over to your. I watched it. That's what's happening in your country right now. It's out of control, and that's because of us. Canada, every other country is being influenced by this trans phobia, this trans insanity, gender nonconforming, all of it. It is influencing people to such a degree that it's getting in their head. Queer theory, right? All of this stuff that I really do think is a negative. I'm all about freedom of speech, friend. I'm all about freedom of religion, freedom of however, but you can't tell other people how they need to live their life. That's not
Mhm.
democracy, and we're
Yeah.
losing democracy. That's why I don't believe in the left over here either, because they're not a democracy group anymore. That's what they used to stand for. A liberal person stands for freedom. If I don't agree with you, it doesn't mean I have to hang out with you. It means I just go the other way, right? But now if I don't agree with you, I'm going to punch you in the face. Like, what's happening? We're the decline of Western civilization. That's what's happening. The decline of Western civilization.
And I used to think, like, if we're talking about this topic, I've heard some things from Putin that he was apparently seeing the West like a really, I don't know, sick civilization and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's really bad there, and they are really
Yeah.
doing bad stuff to homosexuals and so on. So, of
Totally.
course, I'm totally not saying he
No.
knows, how to do stuff. But
Right.
I start to realize a little bit like what he might be seeing from his point of view, because it's so
Yes.
extreme. Like
That's
everyone is so extreme. He's extreme
that's
on one side, but
that's
the West
right.
is extreme on another side.
That's right. No, I get letters. Oh my God, thank you for saying that. I get emails from people in Poland, from Russia. Like, I interviewed, if you all don't know, there's a great interview on this channel from a transsexual woman from Russia. And she says such profound things. She said, if you people don't stop, you're going to kill us over here in Russia. We now actually can be trans. They could if they went through the sex change and they were just doing it like how I do it, right? No, they didn't really care. They were offering hormones for people because you were changing your sex, right? So you were being a part of it. But what happened was the non binary, the trans activists, the insanity started to seep in to the Russian space that she said, I'm scared. I'm scared to be trans more than I have in a long time. And she said, I mark my words, they're going to stop us. And they did. They stopped people from being able to transition in Russia, where there was a time where you could literally do it. And now, because of us putting this, so that's why I think this whole
It's too
trans,
polarizing.
it's too, that's right. And
Mm.
In Poland, trans people are writing me, lesbians are writing me, saying that the West is influencing this and it's making it worse for us in these other
Yeah.
countries, and that's just mind blowing to me.
Because
And
those countries want to take a stance like against the US and go the other way.
that's right, because they
Mm.
see insanity over here, which I will also agree with, right? So they see this sort of indoctrination of little when you start when you start saying little kids are trans who are 4 years old, we're screwed. We're, that
My
Yeah,
kids, my older kid is 4, and my youngest kid just turned 2. So they are both very young, of course.
yeah,
But everything, like, I'm very close to my kids. I spend a lot of
great.
time with them, and everything I have seen my older kid say has come out from someone else's mouth. Everything he says, like, because I used to the
Wow,
first year or so he was only with us, and
right,
I love languages, I teach languages, I learn languages, so
great,
my world is languages, and so I
great,
wanted to share that with him. I started speaking to him as soon as I could, and he
great,
was a very early talker or speaker or whatever.
excellent.
Um, and then I realized very early on that everything he said, I had said at some point. So at first, of course, it was like a mirror, like, oh, he said that. Sometimes I might think, oh, that's so cool. And sometimes I might
Yeah.
be like, oh, damn, I said that. So it was interesting. And then he started going to, he was at we have some kind of nannies that take care of kids, before
Yeah.
they start what we would have like preschool. When they are
Yes.
3, we call that preschool. And so before that, those women were not really talking to him. So everything he said still sounded like something I might have said to him.
Yeah.
But then he started going to school, so for the whole past year, and suddenly he was saying a lot of other things that I had not said. And I knew for a fact that if it did not come from me, it was coming from someone
That's
else's at
right.
school. But so it was interesting to see. We might not realize, and when you don't have kids, definitely you might not think of that, but kids will only repeat what they hear, at
That's
least
right.
up to a certain age. They are just
Right.
like, they are learning from
Yeah.
just mirroring what they see. They're not going to suddenly say something out of their mind that they don't even know
That's
exists,
right.
So
That's
trans kids at 4, come on.
No, you just hit it on the head. And us, I'm a parent too. And that's the thing is, we know we're around kids 24/7. A lot of these people aren't around kids. So they don't, oh no, a kid knows who they are. First off, don't you ever call me a trans kid, okay? I know who I was when I was a little kid. I was a tomboy. I wanted to be a boy, right? And thank God my parents didn't push me in that space. They just let me be little Buck, right? And then sometimes I was Laura, sometimes I was Buck. And it was, just part of the way you grew up. And it was completely okay, right? My parents didn't push me into being this boy. It was just a thing that, and eventually I could figure it out on my own. But the fact that you are telling me a 4 year old, you made such a great point. A 4 year old doesn't even understand what's coming out. It's who's ever putting it in their head. That's why we know these parents of trans kids are literally making these trans kids. They're doing it. It's like my
Yes.
dog. I could make my dog sit and bark and you know what I mean and roll over because of me, not because the dog
Yes.
doesn't want to do that. The dog. So I look at little kids on some level. I mean, I don't. You know what I mean? Like a trainable. You can train a kid
Yes.
to
Yes.
have that way of thinking. It's disgusting. I consider it again child abuse.
Yes.
You
I
can't
think
do
it's
that.
child abuse,
It
definitely.
is. It is.
And I can see sometimes my kids saying stuff and waiting to get a reaction from me. So
Yes.
he had a very short phase when he said, at some point I might have said he was a boy and
Yeah.
his sister was a girl,
Yeah.
just to teach him the words. And then
Yes.
at some point he said, "Oh, mommy, I'm a girl." And I was like, "No, you're not a girl. You are a boy. Look, you have a little, penis and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah."
Yeah.
And then I
Right.
noticed that he was saying a few times, "Mommy, I'm a girl. I'm a girl."
Right.
And, if I had been like a crazy trans activist, I'm like, "Oh my God, my kid is trans. He know what she's talking about." But you know what? You know what I found out? I found that at first I was like really stressed out because I thought, oh my God, if he says that at the doctors, because when he was 3, he had to answer that very question.
Yes.
And when I didn't
Yes.
know, the doctor said, so, he had to answer a few questions because we
Yeah.
check how the kids are growing up. And
Yeah.
then he was like, oh, are you a boy or a girl? And when he said that, I was like, oh, like, I hope he's not going to play this game because it was a game. It was a game.
Yes.
And I found that. And he
Yes.
answered right. He said I was a boy. And I was like,
Yes.
I
That's
was
right.
like
I
this because
know.
but I found that it was a game when I
That's
started
right.
to make it a game myself because at first I
That's
was
right.
serious. No, no, you're a boy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh wait, let me play that game too.
That's
Well,
right.
I don't want to say my kid's name, so I'm gonna use
Yeah.
another name.
Great. Great.
Let's say Robert.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
I'm saying to my
Thank you.
son Robert, oh well, I'm Robert, and then like looking at him, waiting for his reaction. And
Yes.
suddenly he said, no,
Yes.
it's me. I'm Robert. He wanted
Yes.
his identity back. And I said, but you said you're a girl. You're not Robert. And like, no, no, no. I'm not a girl. I'm Robert. And so,
Brilliant.
he was just playing. And then I realized
Brilliant.
that a few times he would be like, well, I'm daddy. And you are. And he would say maybe someone
Brilliant.
else's name. And I was like, well, you know what? And we would keep playing
That's
this
right.
game and inventing names or stuff like that. And it was
Excellent.
nothing. It was not his identity. He was just waiting for my reaction and testing
That's
it.
That is such great parenting. I have to tell you, that's amazing parenting. And that's the crazy parents who think immediately the little 4 year old thinks they're a girl. They're just either confused or they're learning language and they
Yeah,
don't know the difference between a penis and a vagina and they don't know the difference between boy and girl. And it's your job as a parent to make them understand. My parents never said I was a boy, ever. They never said that. They said, you're a girl who likes to be with boy stuff. And my parents raised, I have 2 other sisters. We're all very masculine girls, right? So my parents raised us this way to be very, not like typical girls, thank God. But that being said, my parents could have said, "Oh, you're really a boy." That would My parents are like, "What is happening today?" My parents are pissed when they see this stuff. They're like, "What is happening? Why are they telling little girls they're little boys? That is an actual lie, right?" So you're also lying
because the
to the
kids are
child.
learning.
They're
Yeah.
they're
Like you said, they are
learning.
learning language. They're testing to see your reaction and see how words fit into their
That's
reality.
right. That is such a great story. Thank you for saying that. And we need to hold these parents accountable because it is child. I do not believe there is a such thing as a trans kid. These kids are tomboys or feminine boys or going through something or just normal. It's actually normal for a kid to play with stereotypes, right? It's
Because
just
most kids look almost exactly the same, except for a little difference between the legs. And they
that's
will only
right.
know what it means really to become a man or a woman when those sexual hormones kick in. But if you don't let
Puberty.
them kick in, yeah.
And that's the thing. Why would they want to block the second tier of humanity? That's the second tier of coming into being a human being. It has nothing to do with male or female. It has to do with a person going from being a young person to an adult. And now you want to take this space out right here. You do not get that space back, right? You don't. This idea that it's reversible. Guess what? When you block this space, now it starts from here. This whole space, that's why I can call them out on their bullshit. There's no way you can you blocked it, and you're never getting it back.
No.
Ever. How sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, my friend. I'm so happy when I meet people like you because it gives me faith that people do see this
Some
in.
people are thinking.
Thank God. No, seriously. I think there's
Yeah.
more of us than them, but I think the problem is you and I get our voices shut down because we're not going along with the agenda of this. That
Yeah.
you understand? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So wow, thank you so much for joining me today. Do you have anything else that you want to discuss about that or
Hmm. I
yeah.
guess most of the stuff, yeah, we covered.
We did, and you're a beautiful, amazing human. Thanks for being a great
Yes.
parent, and thank you for showing the world that that to me is parenting. You've got to be attention on your child. If maybe your child does feel a certain way, you don't shame them for it. You're just like, no, you're actually a boy, and then when they grow up, they can figure it out. I know that I'm actually a female. I'm not delusional. I just feel more happy being this way, if that makes sense, right?
And you did it at a time when your brain was fully developed. And imagine if we can change so much like I did between the age of 20 and 25. How can you
That's
imagine that
right.
when you are four, this will
That's
never
right.
change?
No, it makes me want to cry. I'm not kidding because I just see a huge thing that's going to happen. And there's going to be so many young people hurt and physically hurt and mentally hurt. And you know what trauma does? It's hard to get out of trauma when it happens to you. You have to go to a lot of therapy. You have to really be prepared. And I don't think a lot of these kids are going to be able to get out of the trauma of cutting their breasts off or thinking they were boys or nobody helping them. You know, I tell everybody today, I don't care if the trans community hates me. What I care about is that one kid who says, oh, wow, Trampa, you make so much sense. I don't have to make this choice and I can make it later on. Thank you. When I get those emails from the kids, I'm like, okay, I don't care about trans. I don't care about any of it. I care that that kid saw that this is not right and you need to give this kid time. And why I can't do it without you, Gail. I was going to call you Gail. I
You did a
can't do
very
it.
good job.
Thank you. I can't do it without you. And so, it means the world to me that you are willing to have the conversation and step up and be this human being who cares about the rest of the world. And you're not transphobic, so don't let anybody
No,
ever.
I'm not.
You're not. It's all a block so that we don't have these conversations.
Like
So,
you and Marcus say, when someone has been dealing with it for a few years and they
yes,
really know they want to do this
yes,
real like gender dysphoria, not just this
yes,
passing trend, is completely different. But
yes.
it's supposed to be a minority. Like if it's
Yeah.
becoming a big percentage, well, there's a problem actually.
A huge problem. We don't
Yeah.
want all these people to transition. That's the whole point. The
Hmm.
whole point is we don't want you to be this. It's not an easy life. It's not. It's not an easy life, but you figure it out. It's like diabetes or living with certain kind of things. You figure it out, but you don't wish it upon anybody else. I don't wish everyone has
Yeah.
diabetes, right? No, we want to fix that. It's like
Good
ridiculous.
point.
It's ridiculous. But
Yes.
with that, my friend, thank you for joining me. Thanks everybody
And
for
thank
watching.
you for your amazing platform.
Thank you, friend. You're awesome.
Yes.
And so remember, I don't get this without you making the comments, which are always so beautiful and awesome. Leave her beautiful comments and helping me get these people on there and like, subscribe, send this to people, really. And I'll see you guys all on the live on Wednesday. And thanks so much for supporting this channel. Sending you all big love.